a dear friend of mine, Miss Leanne Masters. She has been an amazing inspiration to me in friendship and in business over the years. She's one of the top leaders in our industry that we're in, and I'm grateful to have her. And she is joining us all the way from Lake Tahoe. Leanne, are you there?
I'm here. Good morning, everyone. There's a few people on here going, wow, I cannot believe she's up here so early, 6:15 Pacific Standard Time. But it is my pleasure to be here today. When I was asked to cover this chapter in this amazing book, Little Things Matter, God works in funny ways, right? Because I'm like, wow, this one is great for me too, okay? So we're on chapter 29. Using and remembering names. So have you guys ever met someone for the first time and they hardly look you in the eye and the standard is, hey, nice to meet you? I mean, I know I have done that. I've said, nice to meet you. I've looked them in the eye, but have you ever met someone who's done that to you and they really don't even look at you, their head's kind of down? The question is, what impression does that make on you? And for me, it doesn't make a good impression at all. It's like, well, they're not really interested. They're focused on something else. Probably a lot of you guys have heard of this book. If you haven't, I encourage you to write it down. If you have read this book before, I encourage you to go back. Dale Carnegie's timeless book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He basically discusses the importance of remembering someone's name. I mean, I'm so excited about this chapter. Quote, unquote, if you want to win friends, make it a point to remember them. If you remember my name, you pay me a subtle compliment. You indicate that I have made an impression on you. Remember my name, and you add to my feeling of importance. I think we can all relate to that if we let those words resonate. You know, when someone remembers your name, it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good inside. This was me right here, and I made a decision when I went through this chapter, such a blessing that that's not going to be me anymore. Decision made. Many of us believe that we're horrible at names and reinforce this belief by telling people, I just can't remember names. I've been saying that for decades, right? Decades. It's a really bad habit, and when we do that, we're teaching our brains that we don't remember people's names. So with a concentrated effort, we can break that habit. So first, what we need to do is determine that remembering someone's name is a little thing that matters. It's important. People like to hear their name. Like when I say, good morning, Jack. I heard him dial in, good morning, Jack. It's like I'm talking directly to Jack, right? It makes somebody feel important. It's subtle, but it's important. And I hope that as we go through this chapter this morning and you go through your day today, you think about what we're talking about this morning. Second, when you greet people, whether it's the first time or the 5th or the 10th or whatever, make it a point to say their name in the initial conversation. So, for example, it's a pleasure to meet you, Sharon. And then when the conversation is over and you're getting ready to say goodbye, Sharon, it was really a pleasure getting to know you. And so I think that that's also a subtle importance. Again, you're acknowledging that person, and what it does is in a subtle way, it lets them know that you were engaged and focused intentionally while you were with that person. So there are 6 ways to help you remember names. And if you do this, you're going to stand out. You are absolutely going to stand out. And I think even more importantly than, standing out from the crowd, all the hustle and bustle of life, whether you're face-to-face or on the phone, after going through this chapter, I think it bigger than that for me is I know that I've made that person, as I've talked about already through this chapter, feel good. They feel good. I've left someone feeling better than when I first approached them. So I hope you have paper and pencil, because here are 6 tips that are going to help all of us remember people's names. 1, pay attention when you are introduced. So you're going to focus on them, not on yourself. Pay attention. Number 2, ask to have the name repeated. If you don't hear their name clearly or understand the pronunciation of someone's name, just be gentle, be kind, and ask them to repeat it. Oftentimes people with, hard to pronounce names, they're accustomed to having their names mispronounced, and appreciate all of us who show an interest in getting it right. Number 3, create a strong mental picture of this person. In other words, what makes this person unique? Notice maybe their facial features, their body language. Repeat that person's name to yourself several times as you're going through these distinguishing characteristics. I know I was just at a ladies' event where I only knew about 3 of the ladies. I didn't know 9 of them. And I did this without realizing I was doing it. I still didn't succeed properly, but I did a little bit better than I normally would have. I tried to associate distinguished characteristics. Number 4, which I think I just went through, but use an association. You could also associate that name with an object or their occupation that will remind you of their name when you meet them later. So what the book suggests is try to think of someone else with the same name, then make that connection between the 2 people. Okay? Number 5 is write it down. Carry a notebook. We can do this with our phones. We have our mobile phones all the time with us. We can do this in our notes section of our phone. But when you're attending a group event, jot down a person's name with an identifier. Like, example, Steve with the red hair, Leanne with the crazy hair. Okay, whatever it is, it's going to help you have that identifier. And number 6, ask for business cards in a business setting. Seeing the name in print will help you remember it. Making notes on the back of the card helps you jog your memory. And it doesn't have to be a business setting. Like at the ladies' event that I went to, it was a little Christmas gathering. A lot of them were realtors in different professions. They all have cards on them, right? So I could have asked for cards there and done that exact same thing. So let me once again just give you the 6 steps to help all of us remember people's names because it's so important to people. So 1 is pay attention when you're introduced. 2, ask to have the name repeated. 3, create a strong mental picture of this person. 4, use an association. 5, write it down. And 6, ask for business cards in a business setting. Now, the Little Things Matter challenge is start to be intentional about remembering people's names. Begin by eliminating what's her name and what's his face from your vocabulary. Use all the tips that have been outlined, starting with the easiest one. Repeat the person's name at both the beginning and the end of the conversation. You'll soon become a respected and appreciated person who remembers people's names. Jennifer, like I said in the beginning, I laughed out loud like I got this chapter. I needed this. So what are your thoughts and take on all of this?
Well, this chapter definitely smacked me in the face for sure. This is something I've always felt like I struggled with, but it also said in here, like, I'm speaking that, the power in the words, because I'd always say, like, I have such a hard time remembering people's names. And so I realized I've been reinforcing that belief, not knowing, but it is truth in anything, whether we say, man, I'm so clumsy, or I'm not good at talking to people, or I'm so good at not doing internet or social media, like those are things. So for me, it was a really great reminder to say, yes, I can do this. But some of the things I know I had already done was the writing down. If I'm going into a space where I know I'm not going to have a notepad, I always carry normally a little tiny notebook in my purse. The notes in the phone, absolutely. And if I'm in a situation where I can't get out paper or my phone, I can do the voice memo and keep it in my hand or pocket. So if it's something I need to keep looking at people, so I'll sometimes even turn that voice memo on as I'm talking to people, getting introduced, and then I can go back and write those down if it's somebody I really, really need to remember. A lot of people don't know about the voice memo option on their phone, and it's definitely saved me a lot of time. And I also use the association as well with names of somebody else I know. Because in my mind I'm thinking, oh, yeah, Sherry, I know her. That's my aunt. I have an aunt named Sherry. So I use the association one as well. But there's a lot of other great ones in here that I'm going to take note of too, and just to really focus on that, because I know for me I can think back and when people have been like, oh, they remember my name. Like when I go to my chiropractor's office, I walk in the door and they're always like, well, hey, Jennifer. And I know they have a system to do that, but I'm thinking, man, they have hundreds of people that come through their doors and they actually know who I am. So it definitely does matter for sure.
It absolutely does. I mean, if everyone thinks about, as you shared your thoughts on this after I went through the chapter, I hope that everyone takes time to think about that in their own life, because it's true. When people remember our names, it makes us feel better and we feel more connected, and we're more likely to keep going back to those places because they remember us as well. But it's so important for our friends. So thank you for sharing that, Jennifer. And, I just want to remind all of us, the easiest way to start, the easiest tip of all the tips to start with, is to repeat the person's name at both the beginning and the end of the conversation. And I want to leave you with this. Remembering someone's name is one of the little things that makes a favorable impression. Whether it's in social or business environment, it's a very valuable asset, building instant rapport with new people that you meet. Jennifer just gave a great example of that. I know we all can feel that as we go through our day. So thank you so much for being here. Great tip. Little things do matter. Have a blessed day, everybody.